Another option that enterprise organizations have, which is new or newer, is called user state virtualization. User state virtualization provides synchronization across multiple computers for operating system settings, for desktop apps, as well as apps that are accessible via the Windows Store. It is a bit different in a couple of ways. Number one, administrators have complete control over which computers support roaming because it's not something that's inherent in the operating system. It's an additional agent that has to get installed on those computers. Number two, so you have complete control over the computers, and secondly, you have control over what gets synchronized. So nothing roams unless it's specifically enabled. Settings are also synchronized immediately and available on other systems without signing out. Now that might not be that huge of an issue, but possibly if you have multiple computers like a laptop and a desktop, that could be very beneficial. Once changes are made, they're going to be synchronized. There is no log off, log back on, as there would be with roaming profiles. This is also not a part of, as I said, not inherent to the operating system. It is a part of the Microsoft Desktop Optimization Pack. And so UEV is something that you can freely obtain, but it is, it's part of a separate product. But many organizations are starting to go this route because of the benefits that it provides. Let's start by looking at some of the components of UEV. We've got the agent itself, and the UEV agent is the component that's going to be installed on each computer that will synchronize settings. It also is kind of sitting there and monitoring when changes are made to settings and to apps, and then it synchronizes. And where it synchronizes is to the settings storage location, just a network location where all the settings are stored. That location is going to be specified either during installation of the UEV agent or using group policy, which is certainly the easiest way of doing it, or it can just be set to be the user's home folder. Most likely we'll be using a separate location and we will specify it via group policy just because of simplicity. You get the settings location template. And that's an XML file that specifies the locations where values are stored on a computer. And then you have the settings template catalog, which is simply a folder that stores those XML files. Okay? And so those are kind of behind the scenes components. The primary two components would be the spot on the network where we're synchronizing your settings, and then the agent that gets installed on the individual computers. The process for synchronization when you're using user state virtualization is first, upon sign-in, the agent is going to synchronize settings from the network settings location into the local cache. So that's your typical log on. As soon as you log on, I'm going to go out to that network location and I'm going to get the most recent settings. I'm going to sync them and cache them locally. The cache then gets synchronized every 30 minutes. This is a part of a scheduled task that gets installed as a part of the UEV agent installation. When you're starting apps, you're starting them with settings from the local cache. When you make changes to the app or make changes in the app, then those changes are synchronized to the network location when the app is closed. At that point, those app settings would be immediately available to the app when it's opened on another computer without requiring sign out. So basically all you'd have to do is close the app, any changes are going to be synchronized, and as soon as you open the app on any other system, you will have obtained those synchronized settings. There is some preparing for UEV. It is meant to be implemented in enterprise networks where we have users who are somewhat mobile or logging on to multiple devices. Probably the best example would be a laptop computer, a desktop computer, possibly mobile devices, phones and tablets that are running Windows 10. Since we are talking about app settings, then it's the same apps. The whole design of Windows 10 is so that it could be used on different types of devices, and so we certainly could be talking about that. The first step to preparing is just configuring that settings storage location. If you are going to use home folders, then clearly we have to go into Active Directory and we have to set it up in the user properties. We have to create the folder and share it and make sure that that location exists. If you're using a network share, then the folder is created and shared with very specific permissions. And of course, there's documentation on this, but this is very important in order for the settings to be successfully copied there. So the administrators group is going to have the share permission of full control along with a security group of users that are using UAV. Okay? So shared permissions are full control, and we know that you probably expect that because if you had anything less than that, then they're not going to, we have the whole most restrictive problem. So it's over on the NTFS side that we actually define the real permissions, if you will. Administrators are going to get full control, and that's going to be inherited. The creator-owner group gets full control. That's not on the folder. That would be one where we would go in and we'd modify the inheritance from the parent, and we would say this only applies to subfolders and files. Creator-owner is that special system group that I believe we've mentioned, where if I create something or a process under my account, as this would be, creates a configuration or a folder, then I have full control to that folder. I don't have full control to the parent folder. I have full control to any folders that I might create or any files that I might create within. But the cool thing about the creator-owner is it's not just this one group and everybody who's in it has full control. No, it's specific to each resource. You have to be the owner of the particular object. So creator-owner gets full control, and then the security group of UEV users basically has the equivalent of read and create folders. So it's using special permissions, and it's giving you something of right. So you can list folder, read data, and then you can create folders, append data on that root folder, because that's going to give them the ability, when the UEV agent synchronizes, it gives them the ability to create those subdirectories. And then you can configure the settings template catalog to synchronize other apps. There's a bunch of default apps, but you might have some additional apps that you want to synchronize settings for. So it's in that XML file that we can customize this a bit. And then as a part of the desktop optimization pack, there are some administrative templates for group policy. Administrative templates are simply collections of settings. The group policy settings are essentially just registry changes. I mean, they're designed in a very particular way, but they are contained in what is usually an administrative template, an ADMX file. And so with UEV, you get some of these ADMX files, and you are able to import them into Active Directory. And by doing so, anytime you import additional administrative templates into group policy, what you're doing is you're expanding the capabilities of group policy. Group policy has a ton of inherent capability. This is not part of that inherent capability, and so you have to add to what group policy can do. But they've provided the templates for us. It's just a quick import process. So once you've prepared the environment, you've got the folder ready, you've configured the permissions correctly, you've imported those administrative templates, the next step would be to deploy UEV. And so the UEV agent needs to be installed on each client. You can either provide the initial configuration by using parameters, or you can use a PowerShell script. Following the installation, the computer will have to be restarted. Deployment methods vary. I mean, you can do a manual installation or a scripted installation. They're both technically manual, but scripting automates it by putting all the necessary parameters in. That can be made a part of a login script or a script that is linked to a group policy object. You could include UEV in the standard desktop image. That's a very good way of doing it. We could deploy it via software distribution in group policy. The Microsoft Deployment Toolkit 2012 is not actually one that we talked about, but we could have in the automating deployment. Anytime you're going to be doing light touch, zero touch type of deployments, the MDT is going to be used. So basically, that's just a way of getting it into the image. And then you have System Center Config Manager 2012 R2. That could be used to deploy software as well. So it's just a little piece of software that's going to allow you to synchronize. Really the only configuration of it is that setting storage location. The way that you get this installed on the devices that are going to need it is just going to depend on your particular scenario. But this is, as I said, it's a newer feature, part of the desktop optimization pack, really very useful for enterprise environments, especially as more and more we're seeing people log on using the same domain account to various devices. This gives us a real easy way of synchronizing the settings across all those devices.